Hello and welcome back to the Foundations limited set review. In this video, I'm going to be talking about how good I think the colorless cards are going to be in limited. If you have not been to one of my set reviews before, we are using 5 tiers to evaluate the cards. Tier 1 is good, Tier 5 is bad. These are sort of an explanation of how good each card means, whatever each tier means here. So Tier 1 sort of picks 1 to 2. Tier 5 picks 12 plus in a pack. Obviously, it's not an exact science, but that's kind of how I'm trying to think about it, is when do you pick the cards, as opposed to how strong the cards are when they're actually in play, because I think that's what, reviews and evaluations are actually helpful for. And with that in mind, we are going to begin with Sire of the Seven Deaths. 7 mana for 7/7. First strike, Vigilance, Menace, Trample, Reach, Lifelink, and Ward pay 7 life. So this is obviously very good. The thing about it is that it's 7 mana. There are actually spots where you literally play this and the game just ends because your opponent can't ever kill it. Because they just have 7. If your opponent has 7 life or less, this literally just ends the game because they can't kill it, and then it eventually just starts attacking them and they lose. So, yeah, there's that, and yeah, I mean the only problem with it is that 7 mana is a lot. I could totally see this being viable, and great, but the issue is the mana cost. If you can reliably get to the mana cost, it's going to be very good for you. I have it in Tier 2 instead of Tier 1 for that reason, because it's just not easy to do. It's just not the easiest thing to always be able to get to 7 mana. When you can, it wins a very high percentage of the time. It does still just die to removal. If your opponent has 7 life to pay, it does still just die to removal. That's another thing. 7's a lot. It's going to hit your opponent for 7. That's a lot. There's no denying the highness of the number. But it is not going to just win you every single game you play it. Adventuring Gear. 1 mana for an equipment with landfall. When a land you control enters, equipped creature gets +2/+2 until end of turn. Equipped for 1. Yeah, I mean, I just don't love equipment that only works on your turn. Obviously, that's when you want it to work more because you want to attack. But this is, if you think about it as 1 mana, equipped 1 for +2/+2. That would be really strong, but it doesn't, your opponent can just take the hit, right? With a lot of equipment, sometimes it's well, it's not getting any better, I guess I gotta block and trade down with their thing. But this, you can just be yeah, I'll take the 1 hit, and then if you keep playing lands, you're not gonna have any more creatures, which means that I'm gonna win, because you just keep playing lands, and then you have an land and an equipment. It's just a lot of not affecting the board. With this type of effect, I just don't really like it that much. Banner of Kinship. 5 colorless mana for an artifact. As this artifact enters, choose a creature type. This artifact enters with the fellowship counter on it for each creature you control of the chosen type. Creatures you control of the chosen type get +1/+1 for each fellowship counter on this artifact. So, if you're very, very wide and you need something to finish the game, this could theoretically work. So I think the cats and elves are kind of the 2 types in this set that this can actually work on. Do I think it's good? No, because it's 5 mana and it requires you to have multiple creatures in play. But yeah, if you had two elves in play, and then you made this so that your elves got +2/+2 for the rest of the game, that's probably good. I'm still not 100% sure. I don't know, maybe I'm way underrating this. The more I kind of look at it, I'm well, actually, you can get the cats, and yeah, actually, no. I'm gonna bump it up a bit. I don't think Tier 5 is right for this. To be clear, I still don't love the card because it doesn't do anything by itself, but I do think there are some decks, because if you give +2/+2 to 2 creatures for 5 mana, and then each creature of the type that type is going to be bigger going forward as well. You got to be pretty all in, but I think it actually is kind of doable. I think there actually are decks that would play this in this format, and so I'm going to put it in tier 4. Burnished Heart, 3 mana for a 2/2. You can pay 3 to sacrifice it, search your library for two basic land cards, put them onto the battlefield tapped, and then shuffle. So 6 mana to ramp for 2 is not worth it. This also just dies to removal, too, so very bad. Very bad. Campus Guide, 2 mana for a 2/1. When this creature enters, you may search your library for a basic land card, reveal it, put it on top, and then you shuffle your library. Yeah, I mean, we've seen variations of this more recently than Campus Guide. Campus Guide in Strixhaven was kind of fine. It's kind of like your stereotypical tier 4 card where it's like, oh, if you really need the fixing, you can play it. But it's not amazing. You never really want to play this card. Fishing Pole. 1 colorless mana for an equipment. Equipped creature has 1 tap Fishing Pole, put a bait counter on Fishing Pole. Whenever a equipped creature becomes untapped, remove a bait counter from this equipment. If you do, create a 1/1 blue fish creature token. This card is sweet. I don't know how good it is because it's 4 mana to get going, right? 1 mana for the equipment, 2 to equip it, and then 1 to actually make the first fish. But then, if your opponent can't kill, like if you have like a big wall or something, like a defender with this, and you just like keep making fish tokens every turn for 1 mana, I mean, it's pretty good. The issue is you have to untap with it. I think it's probably too bad. Like, I think it's too slow or whatever. But it's cool. Like, I really like the design. I kind of wish it equipped for 1. You know? Kind of wish if it equipped for 1, all the text, all the numbers on the card would say 1 on them, which would be kind of nice. And like, I don't think it would have been like too strong if you did that. I don't know. I kind of would like to see that. Like, if this card, but the problem is like if it's really good, it's going to be like oppressive because like it does turn like every one of your creatures into like a threat that has to be dealt with because you just start making fish. But it costs you 3 mana to do every time. I don't know. I'm gonna at least try this card out. I want this card to be good because it is a really cool card that does a lot of like interesting stuff. But I do think that it's probably bad, and I'm sad about that. Gleaming Barrier, 2 colorless mana for an 0/4 with Defender. When this dies, create a treasure token. So here's your Defender to use with the fish guy. The problem is this thing is just too small. Like 4 toughness on a Defender. There's Aegis Turtle exists in this set, which is an 0/5 for 1 in blue. Like, come on, man. Like, this is not even like, it's not even that. And like your Defender having to die to make a treasure token is bad. So yeah, it's just not usable. Gold Vein Pick. 2 colorless mana for an equipment. Equipped creature gets +1/+1. Whenever a equipped creature deals combat damage to a player, create a treasure token, and you can equip for 1. So this is really nice. We saw in Kaldheim how really nice this is. This isn't going to be as good in this format as it was in Kaldheim because there's no runes. A lot of the thing, like, I know that was like, oh, it's minor upside. That was actually a pretty major upside. Is if you got a rune on the Gold Vein Pick, you kind of just like won the game a lot of the time. In this format, there's no ways to do that. But Gold Vein Pick it's a good card. It's a good equipment. It gets you your mana back, and it's nice. So yeah, I think you're going to be playing. So you know, a decent amount of Gold Vein Picks in the set. Heraldic Banner. 3 colorless mana for an artifact. As this artifact enters, choose a color. Creatures you control the chosen color get +1/+0. Add 1 mana of the chosen color. So the more monocolor your deck is, the better this is. White and green are sort of the 2 colors that would want this style of thing. Black maybe, I don't know. But I think this is going to be playable. I do. I kind of believe that. It just is kind of a half an Anthem for 3 mana that, also makes you more mana. So it's not quite the banner from Bloomborough, but I think it's good. I think it's going to be solid. I think it's going to be a solid card, and I think you're going to play it in a decent number of decks. Juggernaut, 4 colorless mana for a 5/3. It attacks each combat if able. This creature can't be blocked by walls. So that has all your typical Juggernaut problems of being a 3 toughness for mana creature, but still kind of big. Like in this format, Juggernaut is kind of big. Like there's not, the creature sizes are a bit smaller. Juggernaut is a little bit large. at least attacks and attacks. So I don't know. I think it'll be sort of playable, and like not the worst card. It will not be the worst card in the set. I guarantee that it will not be the worst card in the set. Leyline Axe. 4 colorless mana for a equipment. If this is in your opening hand, you may begin the game with it on the battlefield. Equipped creature gets +1/+1 and has double strike and trample and equipped for 3. So, if you have this in your opener, it's a good card. A 3-mana equipment that gives something +1/+1, double strike and trample that you just have for free. I think that's pretty good. If you don't start with it in your opening hand, it is 7 total mana to get going, which is way too much. But I think if you're like a gamer and you want to believe in yourself and you want to have this in your opener every game, you could probably play it. I still don't even think it's like that great, because anything that equips for 3, I'm just kind of like off, like immediately. But double strike trample, good combination. And it does give it a little bit of a power and toughness boost as well. So I think it's going to see play, and I think if you don't have it in your opening hand, it's probably really, really bad. Meteor Golem, 7 mana for a 3/3. When it enters, destroy a target non-land permanent and opponent controls. I don't like the flavor on Meteor Golem because it should be allowed to destroy lands, because look at that artwork, it is clearly destroying a land. It's definitely destroying a land right now. Like, why is it not allowed to destroy lands? Someone tell me about this. Why can't Meteor Golem destroy lands? It's 7 mana. Anyways, with that aside, yeah, I mean, Meteor Golem's fine. It's, never super exciting. It's like the quintessential core set card that they print in like cores. Like they printed it, I think, in the last core set, and it's okay. It's never amazing because, again, 7 mana is a lot, but yeah, it's fine. There's not a ton of flicker stuff you can do in the set, but I think there are a couple of cards that flicker things, so if you can do that, this is even better. But yeah, I think you can play this in most of your decks, and it'll be okay. Quick Draw Katana. 2 mana for an equipment. During your turn, equipped creature gets +2/+0 and has first strike, and it is equipped for 2. So this is just way too much mana. 4 mana to get this going, and then it only works on your turn. Obviously, you're going to be attacking, but it still is downside that it only works on your turn. I don't see this being reasonable. it's just too expensive. Ravenous Amulet. 2 colorless mana for an artifact. You can pay 1 and tap it to sacrifice a creature, draw a card, and put a soul counter on this artifact. Activate only as a sorcery, which kind of sucks. And you can pay 4 and tap it to sacrifice this. Each opponent loses life equal to the number of soul counters on this artifact. So this is cool. It's like a nice little, we play it, and then you make tokens, and then you sacrifice your tokens, and then you draw cards, and then you make more stuff, and then you eventually kill your opponent with this. It's cool. I think there's too many guardrails on it for it to be good. But I don't think it's like unplayably bad. But yeah, I mean, like I said, there's just too many. There's like 1 or 2 too many things on this that I'm like, it's too much, I think. But I think you can do cool stuff with it. Scrawling Crawler, 3 colorless mana for a 3/2. At the beginning of your upkeep, each player draws a card. Whenever an opponent draws a card, that player loses 1 life. So 3 mana 3/2, that passes to their turn, they draw a card and lose a life. Then they probably kill this because that has 2 toughness, but at least you ate their removal spell and you did 1 damage to them. That's okay, trade-wise. And then if it gets back to your turn, they take another damage and draw a card, and then you draw 2 cards. So you get to use the cards first. I think this is fine. I think this is a fine card. Generally, stuff that draws you and your opponent cards is bad because it draws them into removal to remove the thing. But the fact that you get to use the cards first, and the fact that you're damaging your opponent for drawing the cards, I think is enough to make this decent. But again, it is a 3 mana 3/2, which is not great. Solemn Simulacrum. 4 colorless mana for a 2/2. When this creature enters, you may search your library for a basic land card, put that onto the battlefield tapped, and shuffle, and when it dies, you may draw a card. I think Solemn is fine. It's not the best ever because 4 mana to ramp stuff, and then eventually maybe you draw a card is not super exciting. But I don't think it's unplayable. I think it's decent. The fact that it's colorless is nice. Obviously, again, you don't want to be playing this in a fast deck. You want to play it in a slow deck. But in a slow deck, I think it is impactful enough. Swiftfoot Boots. 2 colorless for an equipment. Equipped creature has hexproof and haste, and it is equipped for 1. One of the more overrated cards, generally, whenever they print it. Again, just kind of like too much mana to be doing this. And equipment inherently kind of has the problem of you're mulliganing until you draw a creature to equip with it. So in a lot of cases, you'd rather just have like any 2 mana creature or like any creature at all than the Swiftfoot Boots. So I don't think you need to play Swiftfoot Boots. We have a land cycle of the gain lands. All 10 of the gain lands are in the set. I've rated them all as tier 3. They're the exact definition of like average fixing. They a little bit of a bonus when they enter. Tap for 2 colors. They're enter tapped. So they're fine. Nothing super exciting about them. Similarly, Evolving Wilds, very cool. Like, I don't know, I really like Evolving Wilds. It's a card that I like a lot, but has some diminishing returns. I think it is better than the dual lands early, but worse late. So I've rated it exactly the same. It's solid fixing. You should play this in any 2-color deck. Like, you should play the first copy of it. But yeah, that's Evolving Wilds. Rogue's Passage. It is a land that taps for colorless mana, and you can pay 4 and tap it to have target creature can't be blocked this turn. This card is not worth a colorless land being in your deck. Limited mana bases are not good, and this card does not make up for the fact that you know, to put a colorless land in your deck and sometimes didn't get to cast your spells. So yeah, just don't play this one. Secluded Courtyard, similar story. When it enters, you choose a creature type. You can add a colorless mana, or you can tap to add 1 mana of any color. Spend this mana only to cast a creature spell of the chosen type, or activate an ability of a creature source of the chosen type. So almost all of the creature types in this set that you could name for this would all be in the same color anyway. So like cat and elf. Like all the elves are green, all the cats are white. So like you don't actually need this. You could just play like a plains or a forest. Human is sort of the only one that maybe you could actually name and like do something with. Just don't do this. It's just not necessary to do this. Soulstone Sanctuary. It is a land that taps for colorless mana, and you can pay 4 to have it become a 3/3 with vigilance. And all creature types, it's still a land. Yeah, I mean this one's actually decent. Like you will play this. It's a creature land. Creature lands are good. They're inherently good. They are worth playing a colorless land in your deck for, but not worth, I don't think, taking really, really early. Because, again, it's still, like, it still has to do something. And this one does do something a lot, but it's not a perfect card. And that's it. That's all the colorless cards in this set. Hope you enjoyed. If you did, there is other Foundations set review content available for you, and there will be more to come as well. I'll see you next time.